California, but they think I'm from New York.
Good, thank God. All right, so he's from California. He originally grew up in New York. He is Nick motherfucking Delgado, and he's here to tell us a little bit about his story. Nick, I appreciate your time today, buddy.
It's great to be on your show. And, to your point about New York, actually, I visit there and I do lectures, and they think I'm from New York, and they go, you California boys, you don't know much, you guys just meditate. And I tell them, and I just sit out at the coastline and I look at Catalina Island and I rock and meditate. We don't have any stress in California. And they look at me like I'm telling them the truth. And I'm like, who are you kidding? We're all under stress, right? Especially California is, well, I won't go into those details, right? But, born and
Why not
raised in
go a little bit
California.
into those details? Taxes are insane. Crime is out of hand. The taxes are going up every single year. It's crazy. Like, tell me one person that doesn't stress out about getting more money ripped out of their pocket by the local governments or the federal governments.
Hey, listen, I've only gone through 5 tax audits, and we done well. That's all I can say about that, right? But
Listen, if you come out of one of those alive, you're doing well.
yes, sir.
So talk a little bit about your book you were just showcasing me.
Stop Aging Now, The 7 Secrets to Look and Feel Great Forever is kind of based out of my experience of guiding and helping people. And I'll go into a few of those stories with your permission, because I think that's germane to the conversation about how do you stop aging, right? We're all up against, I'm not here to tell you, like some of these guys, I'm going to live to 150, 200. No one knows how long they're going to live, but we do know we have control over our destiny to a degree that you're only as good as the food, which you have control over what you put in your mouth and who you kiss, what passes your lips. That's it. Beyond that, there's other steps you have to take to give you that margin of potential victory to live what I would say a successful, healthy life. And that, in my opinion, is Bernardo Lapello and Bob Del Monteque and Jack LaLanne, 2 of which I personally know and worked with closely. And I was kind of once removed from Bernardo, who lived to 114 years of life, stood upright, was coherent up to his final hours of passing. Now, you have to think about it, because this is a true fact. A handful of people have lived past 111, yet several million have lived to 100 years of age. So what is it about that breaking point when you reach 111 that you just drop? Humanity essentially drops like flies. They just die like quick, right? And we have theories about that, but I'm here to tell you that busting theories and hanging on till, we figure it out, it doesn't work that way. Right now, we all have one life, right, Chris? That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless you're a cat. I mean, let's be honest.
You got 9 lives then, right?
Well, it's funny. My neighbor has a cat, and my dog is a Cane Corso chocolate lab. And when he was a puppy, he first walked up to the cat. Cat hit him 3 times in the head. He was 35 pounds, came running back to me. He's like, the fuck was that? But as he got bigger to about 120 pounds, he made it his mission in life to kill that cat. And I'm not kidding you. My neighbor's cat has dodged death probably 13 times, not just from my dog, but like I live out in the desert of Nevada. And I mean, we got bobcats, we got wolves, we got coyotes. That's a neighborhood cat. I'm pretty sure that cat's gone through at least 9 lives.
Speaking of cats, this is a different animal species, but I am enamored, and my kids, I have kids ages 16 to 46, by the way.
Holy
And
fuck, how old are you?
put it this way, I am my favorite 2 digits in the numerical system, and that is the following: 6 and 9. I'm currently that age.
I'll be honest with it. I didn't see that coming at all.
I'm 69.
Yeah, no, I didn't see you saying that you were 69. You look significantly younger.
Well, in 2 weeks, I turn 70.
Okay, so you still look significantly younger.
Well,
I bet you your biological age, if somebody like tested your body, is significantly less than that.
They've measured me at ridiculously young years of age. And I do certain things on a daily basis. And this is true to the case that I have clients that fly in for my Forever Young event that's coming up January 18th, Saturday. We just moved it up to 10 in the morning Pacific till 3 p.m., but it usually stays on a little longer.
Where is it
And
at?
in Costa Mesa, right here at my office. We're in my
Okay.
studio right now. And so we're 10 minutes from the Orange County Airport, 5 minutes from the Newport Beach ocean. It's just beautiful here. And so what I do is I take people and explain and show and demonstrate the very exact steps that you need to take your performance. Within 9 days, I claim that people start feeling and looking better. None other than Tony Robbins used this book, and it says, Revitalize Your Energy in 9 Days, How to Look and Feel Great. Actually, it says how to look great and feel sexy. And Tony Robbins used this because it has 600 recipes. So buffet style, if you can picture this, like in Hawaii or Cancun, Mexico, wherever we did a big 9-day event, maybe anywhere from 2 to 3,000 people would fly in from all over the world. And buffet style, they would prepare recipes right from this cookbook. And it talks about stories and information that people need to know. And what I was there for with Tony as a Master University teacher was to test under a high-powered microscope a drop of their blood and show them their immune system, their red cells, their white cells, the level of their lipids, how much their blood was clumping. So
Are you
I
doing
actually,
stuff that's similar to what Gary Brecka's doing?
far beyond. I've
Okay.
met Gary. I've heard his talk. I've recorded his talk. I went up to talk to him to be on my podcast, and he arrogantly said, I'm not interested." He doesn't even know who I am. So cool,
Yeah,
Gary.
Gary got. It's funny because Gary hurt his back a couple of months ago because
Yes,
he had
sir.
such a large chip on his shoulder. It was causing him to be unaligned. So he until he gets that back straightened out, yeah, he's got a Gary's gonna have to deal with that huge chip that he's got on his shoulder these days.
Well, I can help him fit sideways in the door to fit his head through the door. I don't know, man.
I mean, I think if he lets a little bit of the air out, I think he'll be good to go. Sometimes people get successful and they just, they think bigger of themselves.
We love Gary. It's cool. We all go through stages in life. Actually, you know what's interesting? His number one hire, his first person he ever hired in business, he and I went to the gym and worked out together, and we had a long conversation. His staff is great. I love the staff, and I'm sure he's a good man. I have no qualms about him.
I don't know.
Uh,
Ask Grant Cardone if he's a good guy.
well, I don't know. They're doing business 10x together, right?
Not so much. Not so much.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
New information.
yeah, not so
So
much. That's
to my original comment, I wrote this book, Blood Doesn't Lie. And most doctors around the world, and I say most because I'm part of a group of 26,000 physicians internationally that and nationally that all come together once a year. And that's why, and you too, were at the what's called the A4M.com. And I had a booth there. At the last minute, they gave me a booth. It was all sold out. They still fit me in, which is really nice of them. And what I was doing was getting a little drop of blood, and each mini master classes of 3 to 5 doctors, I'd put their blood up on 3 different microscopes, and with their permission, I'd explain to them what we were looking at, because doctors understand blood tests and chemistries and laboratory results, but they've never seen their own blood, nor have they shown their patients. So I teach as a practitioner a certification course so doctors can bring this real life story, the way Tony Robbins brought me into his event after Tony, true story, had me go to his castle in San Diego. At that time, they called it a castle. It actually looked like a castle. And I was supposed to be given 15 minutes to test his blood. And he walked in, all 6'8" of him, from the boardroom. I could see him talking to all his people. And I drove down because Cindy Soltero, his personal trainer, had said, "Hey, I heard about this guy on radio. He does this test on blood microscopy. And Tony, I think you should meet him." And so Tony sits down. I put his blood on the microscope. I tell him in 15 minutes what I see. And he leans forward and he said, "How'd you know that?" I said, "Well, what do you mean? The blood doesn't lie." And he said, "No, you don't know my medical history. It's impossible for you to know the things that you just told me and that they seem to be accurate and correct." And I said, "Listen, I'd be happy to test as many people as you want." And he said, "Listen, I do want to have more people tested in front of me." And so he literally brought a bunch of his family members and staff, and I tested them. I was there 4 hours, Chris, instead of 15 minutes, right? And then he leans forward, and you know what he asked me?
No.
How would you like to test a lot of people? Can you test a lot of people, Dr. Nick? I said, "Yeah, of course I can test a lot of people. You just saw me. I did, right?" And he goes, "No, no, I have an event coming up called Master University. There's going to be 1,000 people coming. And I'd like you to test them all upon arrival. And what would you say? Is it possible? And secondly, the event ends at the end of 9 days. Could you demonstrate results in 9 days?" I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Yes, to your point, I'll bring my team and myself, and we'll test everyone, and we'll be able to document what's going on with their health." And he said, "You can really do that?" I said, "Yes." And then I walk out, Chris, true story. I'm thinking, this is impossible. No one has ever tested 1,000 people in 3 days and then
Yeah,
repeat
it's
tested.
pretty wild. I'm actually thinking about it because I go get my blood tested every 3 months
Yes,
for
sir.
some stuff that I'm going through, and I have to go to Quest, and it takes them like days to get me back the answers.
Right. But this is real time. We literally get a little finger prick and we put it up on the big TV screen. I just took the microscope and the equipment to Vegas, so we haven't unpacked it. Otherwise, I'd flip to a video showing you my own blood right now. But the point is, I ended up hiring like 20 technicians. We got all the microscopes and we successfully did it. And we did it for several events. And it's interesting because it was one of the most talked about part of his program, I'm told. And I remember people came back 5 years later to see me, 10, 20 years later. And the one thing they remembered most was seeing their blood, and they wanted to see had they progressed. I have clients who have seen me, and 46 years later, Michael Ginsburg, after attending my 6 weekly classes, which I now hold open forum classes every Wednesday night on YouTube. But the point is, he's adhered to our program for 46 years. Now I'm just teaching him the latest nuances of stem cells, peptides, bioidentical hormones, all the latest. You mentioned red light therapy. We do all the best things and we discard the therapies that don't work. Make sense?
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever done this at the NFL Super Bowl?
Wow. I was at the NFL combine, and we were there, but we were not testing people. I was meeting the athletes and interviewing them.
So I'm going to guess you've never done this at the NFL Super Bowl,
Correct.
where there's probably 600 people from all over the world, media companies, and that would be like one of the coolest shit things you've ever done in your life. I mean, Tony Robbins is cool, but we're talking about the Super Bowl.
I'd be all in, man.
Now, how many people could you do at the Super Bowl down in New Orleans?
You mean like the whole stadium? But if you say the
Well,
media,
well,
I could test VIPs.
well, here's what I can tell you.
Yeah.
Every year for the last 20 some odd years, a friend of mine, Lee Steinberg, throws the largest Super Bowl party to kick off the Super Bowl. And this
Oh,
year,
I know Lee.
well,
He hangs out with Todd Alt, and I spoke on their stage in Las Vegas recently,
okay.
last year.
So on February 8th in New Orleans, we're throwing a Super Bowl party for about 5,000 invite only celebrities.
Nice.
Could you test 5,000 people?
Oh, that would be a pretty big crew.
That would be
I
tough.
even if they're drunk, I guess we'd find a way to test them.
Well, I got news for you. When they're drunk, that blood's going to flow a lot quicker. I can tell you that.
Just so long as it doesn't like leave an open wound, right? Fortunately, blood heals up. It's a tiny. Everyone goes, "Oh, it's going to hurt." They're used to being, drawn through the arm. It's a tiny little prick that you hardly
Yeah.
feel on the finger, and we need a tiny drop. We don't need a
It
bunch of
blows
blood. In
my
fact,
mind when people, I go every 3 months and give blood, and people like are so weirded out about giving blood and getting their blood tested. I'm like, they're not sucking it out of your neck like a vampire. It's pretty straightforward. Needle in, blood out, put a little cotton swab and some alcohol, tape it up, you're good to go.
this is so much simpler than that. We use a little auto click that actually looks like this. I load it up, I touch it, click, and I get a little drop, and then I put it, on one of these slides, and then we put the drops there. And there's two parts. There's a dry blood test and a live blood test, which I put a cover slip, and the blood remains alive for like 4 to 6 hours. And
So
what
let me ask you a question. We talked about the Super Bowl in February, but in October, 30,000 world-class athletes come out to Vegas for an event called Mr. Olympia.
Oh, I love Mr.
Have
Olympia.
you ever tested 30,000 athletes at Mr. Olympia?
Uh, True story. Uh, 2 years ago. No, I did set up my microscope with a booth, and I tested guys that were beast like. I mean, they literally bragged about they were aliens, and just beyond belief. And I started noticing a certain pattern amongst the really elite athletes. And you know what that pattern was?
I'm going to guess, but I'm not going to say it. I just don't want to offend like 30,000 guys and have them beat my ass in October.
Well, first off, um, I saw something that is classified as hypercalcemia, meaning they're taking in so much protein that they're losing more magnesium and calcium out of their bones to neutralize, much like I suspect who I did interview, Ronnie Coleman, and he's had, as you know, maybe or not, multiple surgeries. I know Lex Wheeler had his leg amputated because of some disorders that he developed. And he recently, his own son mentioned he should have gone plant-based, and now they're starting to offer plant-based. Even Arnold has gone significantly plant-based after the producer of Terminator came and sent his chef to train Arnold's chef. So Arnold is gone quite a bit plant-based. I don't want to make this about plant-based because I know it turns off your carnivore fans and your paleo fans.
Oh, I
I
got
can
news for you. I rarely eat meat. I eat it periodically just because I enjoy certain meat items. But yeah, I'm either doing protein shakes or plants. Now, granted, I did have to throw out a salad today because I didn't eat it and it was in there for a week. But I was
a
planning to
week.
have a good salad today, and my fuck up there, I actually forgot I had it.
To your point, I have a saying, and I hope this doesn't offend people, but especially if you sponsor them. But I say no way to whey. If you're going to do a protein powder, dairy whey is the cheapest form of giveaway protein. It is highly inflammatory. I see it under the microscope. I see what's called eosinophils increasing. Their a special kind of white blood cell increases in the presence of a food that's considered a foreign protein is not compatible. So that can cause inflammation, joint pain, arthritis. I mean, we use a plant-based protein, but it's all beets, yams, 35 ingredients,
Oh my God,
non-organic.
I eat beets like crazy for blood pressure. I'm
Yeah,
not
my buddy
stuff
Nathan
like
Bryant developed that product.
this stuff's like candy. I don't know. I don't even know how this is even good for me. I eat these things like they're candy.
Yeah, my buddy Nathan developed that, and he comes up to my booth and he always buys my product. By the way, if that tells you something about
Well, I
my
got news for you.
expertise in
Your buddy Nathan
formulation.
crushed it with this shit. This shit is fucking amazing.
I agree. Nathan's a great scientist. He's a smart guy, and I've interviewed him several times. He and I have a lot of beliefs about nitric oxide and the benefit for male and female intimate function. I won't use the word sexual function because podcasts, I don't know what I can say,
Oh, I don't give
but
a fuck. You can say sexual. I mean, listen, this is one of those podcasts. We're not worried about the censors. They want to censor this shit, they can go fuck themselves.
cool.
And by the way, I
So
make sure I upload all my stuff to Rumble, X, and all the platforms that don't have the censorship Nazis. Which, by the way, if
got it.
the AI is listening, that's Nazi, Nazi.
I wrote a book, Mastering Love, Sex, and Intimacy. And to this day, I believe it's the only current book that rivaled or and agreed with She Comes First by Ian Curran. Have you heard of that book?
No, but I'm pretty sure that it requires you to make sure that the girl's happy first.
You know, the whole theory is, and this was proven in Scientific American, that women, and let me be blunt, if I may, porn has done
I mean,
men.
I think I've been blunt the whole call so far. I think the whole show I'm going to be blunt.
Cool. Porn has done us a disservice. It may stimulate you while you're watching it, all cool. But when they show a guy lasting and banging away, for half hour or whatever, and then the woman's, screaming like Sally Met Harry, if you remember that movie, basically faking their orgasm. Scientific American, and this was validated by Alfred Kinsey, the famous sex researcher. Do you remember there was a movie about the Kinsey report? And it was based on college students, and he was a insect expert, and then he started studying human sexuality, and he wrote a whole textbook. And this is a true story. He hired 4 gynecologists to examine 600 women, and they used a probe to probe the inside of the vagina, and they found zero, listen to me clearly, zero pleasure nerve endings in the vagina. All of them are concentrated in the exterior, the clitoris, and little areas around the outside.
Okay. So just so you know, I haven't done 600 women where I've studied that, but I'm pretty sure I agree with them because I'm pretty sure all the stimulating parts on a woman's vagina area are on the outside because I'm telling you, I couldn't find anything on the inside. So I can agree with that research.
It's true. There is a comment, and by the way, there's a Asian gentleman. I don't know if he's a doctor or not, but he's been on the London. I think it's called London Reels. Maybe it's a
Yeah, I know
podcast.
London Reels, yeah.
Yeah, it got
I'll be honest
banned.
with you, that guy dresses in some funky suits. I'm not a big fan of the whole funky suit, but that guy owns the funky suit award day.
True. He always wears this like Wall Street type suit, right?
Well, yeah, but he does like orange ones with pinstripes. I mean, he literally goes for straight funk.
That's crazy. So point is, he had this guy on his show, which I actually agree with, and he was explaining that there is a third level of orgasm besides the G spot, which you have to reach up, and the clitoris, which is external, best reached by either a Hitachi vibrator, as proven by Masters and Johnson, the other famous sex researchers, or by oral sex, basically, or a water jet. If you want to be clean about it, just point a little water jet in that area, and she'll come like a rocket. But the point is,
I'll be honest with you, I'm not bringing any water supplies to the bedroom, so I think we'll just have to go straight with the old-fashioned oral sex.
you got it. So the point is, he was demonstrating and
Honey, I hooked up the hose to the bathroom. We're gonna bring the hose into the bedroom tonight.
there you go. I once created, I thought this would be a great invention for the shower area. So, couples could meet in the hot tub or whatever in the shower and do that kind of little thing. And then I went to a convention. It was one of those intimate conventions, where they teach people how to make love and stuff. And they were selling it. I'm like, he beat me to it. But
I gotta tell you, I got this new shower system where it's got like the rainfall and it's got the hose handle with the pulsating head and it's got
yep.
colors. It changes colors like red, blue, green, whatever.
Wow.
And like I've had a girl stay over every now and then. They love that the whole like color thing. So there's something to the whole colors, the lights and the colors.
Well, as you know, with women, sex starts in the brain for them. They're highly, highly, sensitive to their thoughts, their fantasies. That's why romance novels are still the number one selling, and women principally are the ones who read it because they like a little bit subtle, less blunt like guys are, right? They like the, little flirting and innuences and stuff. But when you say it direct, hardcore, some women like it, but most don't. They like that just subtle, leave it to their imagination. That's still probably the case. What do you think?
I'm pretty sure it is. But then again, Vegas women are a whole different breed.
Right, right, right. So if you want to know, there's only one way to know if a woman's orgasm, and I've only revealed this on a few talk shows, and this has been clinically proven and correctly ascertained.
I'm literally taking notes. So whatever you got, I'm ready for it.
Okay. Do you mind if I backtrack to this? I believe his name is Nimchuk. I might be mispronouncing him.
I
Forgive
can't
me.
take you seriously if you're going to quote some guy named Nimchuk.
he it's written about in a German book, and the title of the German book is Fisting.
Okay, now I'm listening.
So so I was in Vegas at a conference, and it was kind of a couples conference,
Was it
highly.
called ABN? Because I've been there too.
No, this is beyond that. But they had a couple. In this case, it was two ladies, and the lady laid back, kind of completely undressed, and the other lady put on a glove, sterile, put some lubricant, whether you use coconut oil or otherwise, and she gently put her hands together and slipped her hand all the way to the wrist and beyond to push on her cervix, where the woman went on to experience deep, deep orgasmic pleasure.
Well, I'm going to say that I might have too big of a fist for some ladies, but there's other ones that might just work out.
So the truth is that there's really three levels of orgasmic capacity. And in that one, they don't easily fatigue like the clitoris will fatigue quickly. I didn't know we were going to degenerate into all this sexual talk. Sorry. But,
I'll
being
be
the
honest with
author.
you, I had a bunch of shit written down. None of it included all of this, so we're good.
Okay. This book, Mastering Love, Sex, and Intimacy, goes into a deep dive, pardon the pun, and it will teach you things that no one else is telling you.
I'll be honest with you. I have to read the book. Do you have an audio version?
I'm glad you brought that up. I plan to use Audacity and follow the guidelines of Audible Book. And I did an Audible Book version of it, but it didn't match Audible Book standards. I don't know what the deal was at that time, but I have some great text now. And I do plan to record
Well,
my
if Audible
recent
makes you
five
fill out
books.
the whole fisting chapter, I think it's going to ruin the whole book.
I should leave it out or leave it in?
No, leave it in. Come on.
Oh, deep in, right?
Leave it, yeah, all the way in.
So, going on with the conversation, I believe and here's because some people will take me wrong. This guy, he's crazy talking about sex. Love and intimacy is the number one factor proven to promote longevity in humans. They live longer if they have sex and make love, or at least have community, get together, have friends. That's true, right? There's a whole book by the Blue Zone, and I have it on my shelf right here, and it's all about love and connection. And we now have by Dan Buettner evidence that more than diet, more than exercise, whether you smoke or not, whether you gamble or not, it's love and connection, the number one key to longevity.
Did not know that.
Absolutely 100% true. And my colleague, Dr. Michael Grossman, who wrote the book Marriage Map, concurred with what I just said. So here's the problem, Chris. Us guys get to a certain age, and we have difficulty, even if we're in front of a young, beautiful woman or a woman beyond our age, a cougar, whatever it is you want to go for, right? It's all personal
Shout out
preference.
to all those cougars out there.
Yep. And the point is that it's difficult for a man past the age of 35 to perform on demand like a porn star. Do you know what porn stars use to perform on demand?
I'm pretty sure it's an anal prod. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, well, I don't.
Okay, so I don't know if you know where that came from, but when horses have to give up semen, especially like, very fast horses, like Kentucky Derby winners,
Right, right.
how they get them to actually like ejaculate? They stick a
No.
needle prob in there and they just give them a little bit of juice and they fill up the sperm.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Talk about a shitty way. Like if the guy wins the Kentucky Derby and then for 300 other sessions throughout the year, he's got a poor Mexican guy. And I'm not saying they're all Mexican, but stick a nail prob up his butt and get him to squirt out some valuable juice.
Well, to your point, when a person is like anticipating this love-making session, with porn stars, it's not the fluff actress that gets him ready. It's an injection called a trimix. And it's a combination of, I won't get into the chemistry of it, but when you inject it with a really tiny needle just at the base of the penis, within 15 minutes to or so, a man will get hard and erect. I know this to be true because I had guided a client who had got injured in a construction injury and he was paralyzed from the waist down. He had a beautiful wife, but he could never make love to her. So I instructed him to do three things: to use PT-141 injected under his skin, which any guy can do. We have available, we now have created a peptide laboratory facility called delgadolabs.com. I don't know when this airs, but it's going to be out here in time for the new year. And you take this PT-141, inject it under the skin, and it hits the fantasy area of the brain, and you get the ragingest, hardest erection of your life. That kicks in within about 2 to 4 hours. That's the kind of strange thing. You got to time it. And depending on you, some people get hard within 2 hours, some within 4 hours. The other thing,
or is this a pill?
no, that's an injection under the skin. But I developed the first oral product called Arouse Passion, and it takes one little pill, which is PT-141 is a subgroup of melanotan. Without getting overly complex, it's the same part of the chemistry of the body that helps you get a tan, a suntan. If I look uncommonly tan during this time of the year, because I too use PT-141 for good reason, because it allows a 69-year-old to perform like a 29-year-old on demand.
And is that a pill or is that a jab?
Okay. There's a tiny little needle, smaller than an insulin needle, that a diabetic uses that works incredibly well for men. But I also made the pill version, and it just came out. I'm the first to have it available. It's even on our website. But the point is, you basically, I discovered that when you give a woman just one little tablet, they get juicy, their libido goes up, they get excited. When they do come, they come like a rocket.
Remind me to give you my mailing address when we're done with it.
Okay. So point is that I'm kind of this mad scientist. I'm always trying to figure out how to improve lovemaking. Why? Because again, it's the key to longevity. You follow to my point about love and connection. They live the longest of any people. Second only, or the only thing that follows it is sleep. So you got to time it. You got to figure out in Vegas, get to sleep early, sleep for about 4 hours, go out and party, enjoy ladies or guys, whatever your thing is. And then, go to sleep and get your second shift in the morning, because you still need 8 hours, but you need to get circadian rhythm, that early window of sleep, to rejuvenate all your hormones, growth hormone, testosterone, the PEA, love at first sight hormone. There's a great book. I didn't even write it, but I quote it and reference it. And it's called The Alchemy of Love and Lust by Teresa Crenshaw. Still one of the best books ever written. Have you ever heard of John Gray? He wrote the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Well, I heard of the book. I didn't know that the author was named John Gray, but I know the book.
He sold 40 million copies. I've shared the stage with him in New York and other places around the world, because he'll take notes at my events because he knows I know the science of love and sex. And he even did a quote, if I may read, on the top of my book. This practical guide for creating lasting love and intimacy provides new insights to make you a star in the bedroom. John Gray, author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So the only reason I bring that up is because, going back full circle, I left what's called an open loop. Tony Robbins uses these all the time. You start a story, you don't quite finish it. I'm going to finish that story that if a woman wants to fall in love or have a man fall in love with her on a regular basis, do you keep sex away from that man and only offer it occasionally, or do you have and make love on a daily basis? Which one will cause a man to bond to a woman more?
Okay, so I think women think that if they hold sex away from you, it makes you love them more. But I think men, especially these days, look at that and go, okay, fuck that shit.
You're correct. Women are 100% wrong. There's actually a bonding hormone, vasopressin and aldosterone. And the more often you make love with your man, that hormone increases, as does oxytocin. and that man will be bonded to you like you have no idea. Now, some
Yeah,
women will say, I
I
don't want to
actually
make love every day.
I actually heard also that if you just cuddle and hold your woman, there's something about that warmth and connectivity.
Huge. Yeah, that releases oxytocin. So, in fact, at orgasm, women release massive amounts of oxytocin, and oxytocin is an estrogen-like molecule. So they come to life, they talk, they're feeling great after orgasm. Guys, after they come, all this oxytocin floods their system, and it's an estrogen-like molecule, like I said, and they roll over and go to sleep.
That's
So, right?
so we've gone down the path of, human sexuality, which is great. And we're at that time of year where, Christmas is here, New Year's Eve is here. People are spending time together. Some of them might even be going on vacation together. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you recommend people do. Three simple things that they can do to improve their sex life. And you can talk about it from a man's perspective or a woman's.
In no particular order, first to your question, you've, I don't know if you heard, but I'll say it. During the Korean War and the Vietnam War, our young men who died in action, when they were autopsied, aged 20 to 22, compared to the opposing side, in that case, the Korean War, and I mentioned the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese, which are largely rice, plant-based eaters, they found virtually no atherosclerotic plaques or clogging the arteries. And a ED is the canary in the mine, the coal mine, because if you understand, the coal miners used to take a canary down in the deep mine. If there's bad gases, the canary
Yeah.
would die, and they go, oh shit, I better leave this place quick. Well, when a man is suffering from ED, it's a sign the smallest artery in the whole human body, which is the penile artery, clogs up by the age of 20. And a majority of men start suffering ED very younger now than they ever did before.
That
So
you know what? That's true because there's a lot of people out there selling ED, drugs online, and that's a huge business. It's actually getting bigger.
it's getting bigger, to your point, to make a point, right? So
Yeah, exactly. But I'm bummed.
I have a product I call More O, and the O stands for orgasm. It's used for both men and women, and it's on our website. And long story short, what I do is I stack it. For a guy to have the ultimate sexual experience and a woman to enjoy pleasure, I was once asked in front of a group of 1,500 physicians by Ava Goodell, the sex expert. She even wrote a book. I think she's got a website, sexperts.com. But the point is, they asked me, and when I answered the question, there was flashlights going off. People were taking pictures. Everyone was laughing and roaring. And I actually asked a tall, beautiful brunette from the back of the room who I actually went to high school with. And I said, would you mind being a model and come up on stage and me demonstrate to the group what you should do to please a woman, have the ultimate sexual experience? And she actually agreed to come up on stage, and it was hilarious.
But what happened?
Well, on stage, I had Bob Delmatique, who's a senior fitness star, and he wrote for Muscle and Fitness. You've heard of Muscle and Fitness magazine?
Yeah, it's owned by one of the president of Muscle Fitness. I interviewed him yesterday, and his name is Dan, and he's the guy that runs Mr. Olympia.
True. So Bob Delmatique asked him, because he's this superstar that was the icon of the A4M, of the poster guy of anti-aging. Why? Because here he was in his 80s, still passionate, able to make love to young women. And he and I was his mentor. I coached him on a regular, he'd call me every week, literally, and I would coach him. And it's interesting because I didn't want to be stamped as a sex doctor, because this was pre-Viagra, when it's okay to talk about ED and things. So I never talked about it. But when I got invited to speak, they banned the talk because that organization didn't want to be known as a sex organization. They didn't let me come back on stage till 2012, which I spoke at a smaller group of their sexual healing expert doctors. This is a true story. Point is that when I demonstrated what I said was that the ideal scenario would have a woman, can you picture this, get on all fours, look back at you, hold a Hitachi vibrator underneath, not the little battery operated ones. Those aren't strong enough. Hitachi has two. There's the original, and then there's this cheap knockoff from China. And somewhere I was giving a link out to people on my website. And long story short, the lady would hold it underneath right where she likes it on her not her vaginal, but her clitoral area, right? And as the woman builds up her intensity, because there's a bell curve, women will come anywhere from within 5 minutes to an hour. Most are past that half-hour point because they got to get through things in their mind.
I can verify that. It's usually past the half-hour mark.
Right. So even if you're doing oral sex, even if...
So you got to do a lot of pregame work on a girl.
Yeah, you got to have really strong, like a public speaker like yourself, you have to have a strong tongue.
He said it.
So,
and you're the expert, so therefore.
There you go.
And I'm sure you've got some study that proves that to be true. In fact, the next time I have a sexual episode, I'm going to quote so many of the things we've just talked about. It's going to be like a science experiment. I'm going to be like, listen, you have no idea what's happening, but trust me, I got a lot of knowledge since I last saw you.
Well, it's interesting, Chris, because one of the famous doctors, Kent Holtorf, walked up to me at the A4M and he said, I had you on my podcast to talk about peptides. He said the doctors were laughing so loud. They're having such a good time. He said, I want you to be the first on my podcast for the next coming event because you are the best when it comes to telling the truth about what people really enjoy for love and connection. So just without qualifying and getting further, Dr. Holtorf bought one of my microscopes. I trained his staff how to use and look at a microscope. Dr. James Lawrence in Michigan. So there's a group of doctors that are going through my certification course. I don't talk anything about sex there. I'm telling them about their blood, their chemistries, how to prevent ED. Right? That's clogged arteries. And do you know the group in the world who has the #1 level of ED in the world? Do you know where that would be?
All right, let me guess. Only because they eat horrible food. It's got to be like China or Japan.
Wow. I'm impressed. It's the richest area of China, not rural China where they eat rice and vegetables. The richest area because, they're making bank from, all the stuff they
exactly. Well, I got to tell you, like China, I was almost going to say North Korea too, because North Korea and China, they eat so much food that is high in oils and fats, and,
yep.
and they eat a lot of pork, and that pork clogs up those arteries over time. In fact, a friend of mine ran a funeral home in Asia, and I want to say South Korea, and he literally he hardly had to embalm people. I don't think people realize this. Japanese beer uses formaldehyde as a preservative. And over years, so many Asian people drink so much Chinese beer, especially like the Sapporo or whatever, that formaldehyde, your body can't get rid of it. So your body actually gets thicker and dense from formaldehyde that when you die in Asia, most of your shit's already got formaldehyde in it. They don't have to pump you full of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a fact I didn't know. That's craziness.
So
I've been to China several times speaking at anti-aging conferences. I was voted best speaker in South Africa. I've been all over the world speaking for conferences, and now I'm submitting my abstracts to come back on the medical tour. And I'm also open to the general public because I can dummy it down or I can keep sex out of the conversation. I just made a joke that didn't go over well, though, with a big financial real estate audience because it was mixed audience with females. You know what the joke was at the end? Well, Chris, I said, listen, my goal is to live long enough and to be healthiest, to be the healthiest individual on the planet, that to prove it, on my 110th birthday, I plan to make love to 3 women, average age of 33 because it'd be age appropriate. 33 times 3 is 99, and I'm 100 something, so it'd be appropriate. Well, the joke didn't go over very well. Everyone got upset.
I'll be
except
honest
the
with you, buddy.
guys.
If you can
The
make,
guys liked it, and several multimillionaires worth $500 million. I won't name their guys. They came up and said, "Will you be my mentor? I need your help."
listen, I got news for you. If you can make love to one of those girls at the age of 110, hats off.
Well, I figure it proves my point. I have people saying they're going to be eating popcorn sitting seat side while I perform
Well,
what
there
I
was that
profess is
one OnlyFans
possible.
girl recently that did 100 guys on her in 24 hours. Like she had sex with 100 guys. Now, granted, girls are different than guys because they're the receiver, not the transmitter.
Right, right. Girls have literally unlimited capacity. They were designed. Do you know our primitive relatives, the bonobos monkeys? Have you ever heard of them? They're called the love monkeys from Zaire, Africa. You can see little tribes of them in San Diego Zoo. Have you ever heard of them?
Well, I've seen monkeys, but I don't know. I can't really think of what a love monkey looks like.
They stand upright. They make love looking at each other's eyes, unlike rear mount, like most animals, although humans like that too at times, right?
I was
Uh,
going to say that, that seems to be a popular one.
Right. The point is that they literally are 98.6 genetic match to us. And I try to figure out, well, what would be the primitive diet of humans? And it turns out to be largely plant based. The bonobos monkeys make love several times a day. This is a true story. Do you know dolphins are highly sexual too? They make love constantly. You know that?
I mean, I've seen dolphins before. I'm not exactly sure how they actually do the whole lovemaking thing, but I'm sure they figure it out.
Right. So the point is that we learn a lot. My kids call me Big Monkey because I always hunt down monkeys in different countries because I'm fascinated about them. I think you learn a lot how smart and intelligent and just certain things about them. But all that aside, I was in the Bali forest and a group of men, and we were buying bananas to go feed the monkeys. And so we walk into the forest and little baby monkeys come up to eat the bananas. The mommy monkey comes up. The uncles, the little brothers, they're a little bigger. They're pretty dominant. So they'll come in and snatch the food out of the hands of the baby monkeys. But the female monkeys are pretty dominant too. So they'll slap the uncle to the side. But then out of nowhere, a big alpha male monkey comes darting through the forest. You see the trees or the brushes being separated, and he darts through. He skips the big American bodybuilder with us who is on synthetic steroids. The big alpha male monkey could not sense its hormone, its pheromones, his testosterone alpha presence. He skipped the big Asian guy. He skipped the Australian, and he ran right for me. And he came with his claws and his teeth and chased me out of his territory to make sure I was far away from his harem.
Why?
Because that's what alpha males do. In humanity, you see the same thing. It's a pecking order. The guy
So,
pulls up in his rented Ferrari in Miami, right? And all
so
of a
the
sudden
so the
he's
big
the
guy, you
alpha.
passed up the big guy because he had synthetic steroids or
Yeah, yeah, because
hormones?
the monkey could sense my powerful, bioidentical, natural uh, testosterone levels at levels that's of a 22-year-old, even though I'm 69.
Oh, this was recent?
No, this was about 15 years ago. But here's the interesting caveat. I went back 10 years later to the rainforest. Could not have been the same monkeys with a different group of guys, mostly Australian. And the same thing happened. The big alpha male monkeys chased me, skipped the other guys, and the Australian actually said this. He goes, "Oh, you piss off the monkeys. What are you doing?" I said, "I'm not pissing them off. I'm afraid of them. They're trying to hurt me." All I have to say is you don't even need to do a blood test to see if you have optimum testosterone levels, Chris. You just have to set a monkey next to you, and if he gets pissed off, you know you have good levels.
I'll be honest with you. The only experience I've got with monkeys is I went to Costa Rica once. And
Yep.
when I checked in this hotel, the guy at the front desk said, by the way, don't feed the monkeys. So what do? I get in there, I throw my bags, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. There's some fruit in the middle of the table, 3 bananas, an orange, and an apple, whatever. And there's a fucking monkey on my patio. And I'm like, I'm eating a banana. He's like, yo, how about some banana? I'm like, I'm not going to finish the whole thing. So here's some banana. gave the little motherfucker half a banana. The next morning, fucking 400 monkeys on my patio, knocking on the glass. I was like, what the fuck? Like, once you feed them, they bring the entire crew. And I literally couldn't go on the balcony anymore. So I went downstairs and I said, hey, listen, I need a new room. He's like, what's wrong? I said, we got issues. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, you know, the whole part about don't feed the monkeys? He's like, yeah, you should probably emphasize that a little bit more. He's like, why? I'm like, I got 400 fucking monkeys on my patio. He's like, did you feed them? I'm like, do I look like I fed them? Of course I fed them. You said it passively, like, don't feed the monkeys. You probably should have said, don't feed the monkeys. Long story
Oh,
short,
that's
another
that's hilarious.
Huh?
I was in Costa Rica and I visited like 3 times, and my family said it was one of the best trips they ever had. I never forget. I was in the rainforest again hunting monkeys, right? And uh, these monkeys are so smart. One of the persons with us had a cigarette lighter, and I kid you not, they set it down for I don't know what reason, and the monkey, after we were interacting with the monkeys, ran down, grabbed the cigarette lighter, ran up the tree, and was playing with it.
Trust me, these monkeys, they're not only smart, but they were like opening up the patio door too. And I was like, yo, motherfucker, we got to keep that thing locked. I mean, they like, trust me, they're aggressive monkeys. Like, you give them half a banana, they want the entire they give you a grocery list. They're like, yo, we want fucking a dozen bananas this time. Long
There's a
story
picture.
short, I learned the lesson the hard way. Don't feed the monkey. When they say don't feed them, they should probably raise their voice a little bit and say, hey, don't feed the monkeys.
I was in India, and there's a picture in my office of a monkey sitting on my shoulder. And I was in the road to Agra, which is the Taj Mahal, which is just, by the way, the most spectacular human built thing you've ever seen. I mean, I don't know, I haven't been to the pyramids yet, but it just blew me away. I like, oh my gosh, how could they have made this? But, you know, just my interaction with monkeys.
For the record, I've been to the pyramids, and I got to tell you, there's no
Yeah.
fucking way man built those things without some sort of equipment or help from aliens. Because if you go to the pyramids, that
Yes,
shit
sir.
is structurally insanely well built. And the shit that's actually at the top or even lifted up, those things weigh tons and tons and tons of weight. I'm like, there's no fucking way they didn't have machinery to build this thing.
You know, to that comment, they found in the pyramids nuts and seeds that were stored 4,000 years ago. And I tell people, when you buy nuts and seeds raw, not salted and roasted, you soak them in water overnight because they germinate and life begets life. So they become 1,000% increase in enzymes, vitamin C, B, all these nutrients. And then you eat them. You don't have to wait till they're fully sprouted. Just soak them overnight. But the truth is, they took some of the seeds from 4,000 years ago, put them in moist water, and they sprouted and grew. So there's something called an anti-enzyme property with all nuts and seeds, and you should not eat nuts and seeds raw. You have to soak them because that anti-enzyme property will deplete your enzymes. There's been studies, at least on animals, show.
I go out of my way to get unsalted nuts, and I eat them like they're going out of style. I'm actually going to try the whole soaking thing now.
Soak them. They get a little sweet, they get a little moist, but it removes.
I eat cashews and other nuts, and I got to tell you, I think cashews are like, they're amazing.
I do that with almonds, walnuts, cashews, and I soak them. And I put chia seed and flax seed separate because they get like mush. And when you put water in, they thicken. And that's where you get the best source of omega essential fatty acids. People say, oh, you don't use olive oil in your diet. Yeah, I eat olives. I don't eat the processed olive oil.
Wait a second. So you soak the nuts, you put chia seeds on there?
Well, I put them in 2 separate glass jars because the chia seeds, they get real thick.
Yeah,
and then I put
turn into like oatmeal.
Yeah, but the nuts and seeds, you soak them and rinse them, and you pour off the brown water because that's the anti-enzyme property. So I separate them.
All right, I'm gonna try it on the nuts. I don't know about the chia seeds. That just sounds, you know, like I'm gonna eat like oatmeal or peanut butter.
Well, you know what? They actually taste chia and flaxseed when you soak them overnight and you put in some blueberries, maybe a little banana or figs. They actually, I had some today. I have them most every other day just to make sure I'm getting my omega essential fatty acids. I don't believe in this fish oil stuff. Fish oil's got its challenges. I mean, you got heavy metals. Tony Robbins recently was shown to have one of the highest levels of heavy metal exposure because some quack doc, oh, I shouldn't say that word. Let's just say Stephen Gundry convinced him to start eating big game fish, and he got exposed to the highest level of mercury. The bigger the fish, the more they get pollutants from the ocean.
Well, I got to
And
tell
the
you, I don't think anyone talks about this subject matter. I'm actually glad you brought this up. And I've told tons of people about this. I don't think people understand. So in Japan, there's a place called Fukushima, and they had a nuclear power plant slide into the ocean. The fishery, which Japan makes a lot of their living off fishing, has gone to shit out there. And what else had changed is great white sharks used to be off the coast of Japan like crazy. But now there's a serious number of great whites that feed off the San Francisco Bay on seals, and they feed on other animals, and they've gone up 15 to 20x off the coast of San Francisco and San Diego and other areas, even like Australia. And the reason why is because these sharks are great eaters. That's what they're eating machines. And they've literally gone away from that part of the world to feed because they realize that food source is getting infected with nuclear waste. I don't think people understand that. And I know the government, Japan's not going to talk about it. And our own government lies to us every 3 seconds. But I'm 99% sure that the oceanic food supply is slowly over time getting fucked up from that radiation, because that radiation is seeping 2.5 tons of radiation a day, every single day, like clockwork, into the ocean. And that shit doesn't go up and go away. There's no miracle where it goes away. So we're either going to end up with bigger fish with two heads, or we're going to have a fucked up food supply. But I don't think people realize the whole food supply in the ocean is getting affected. And that's been now, I think Fukushima's been now like 12 years, 13 years since that happened. So they've had 13 years of 2.5 tons of radiation every day seeping into the ocean. I don't think people understand that. That's like a subject matter. Literally no one talks about that shit.
To your point, when Fukushima fired off, I packed up my whole family from California because I knew our coast would get hit first. We flew to Orlando, Florida, and I created a product called RAD iodine. In other words, RAD, radiation. And it turns out that when you take iodine, not in the cheap vitamin mineral Walmart thing, I shouldn't badmouth Walmart, we sell products in Walmart, but the iodine is in micrograms, thousands. You have to take at least 30 milligrams. We learned that from Chernobyl, where, do you know what they did when their plant blew off? You know what they did to take care of the matter?
No, I had no idea what they did.
They brought in 1 million soldiers and they buried Chernobyl in cement permanently. And even that area is still minimized in how much time you can go by it. You follow? To your point, Fukushima is not only slid in the ocean, it's still releasing massive amounts, and they don't know what to do with all the water. And I have two friends that live in Japan, and they're telling me they're talking about dumping it, the rest of it, all the collection tanks, into the ocean.
Yeah, listen, I got to tell. Here's another story. I'll even go one step further. I went to Japan to speak at an event, and I was there for 2 weeks. I loved it. The people of Japan are amazing.
What
And
year did you go? I went 2006 and talked on sex. What year did you go?
so I went 2018 and spoke about mindset, literally to a large sales organization, 2,000 network marketers, and literally getting your mind right, your body right, and your life right, and your money right. Totally different subject matter. But when
I
I
love
went
it.
to the grocery store one day just to get some whatever, they had like this dividing line for all the produce, and they had tomatoes here, and then they had other tomatoes on the other dividing line. And I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, what's the dividing line for? He goes, well, these are imported vegetables, and these are the ones grown in Japan, and they're cheaper. And I said, why are they cheaper? Because all of our farm country is getting water from Fukushima, and we find that it's got some variances. And the variances were the local grown vegetables had some fucked up shit to it. Like they had two stem cell eyes for the tomatoes and stuff. And I'm like, so this stuff's cheaper because it's radioactive? He's like, we don't know and they won't tell us, but it's cheaper. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to take a hard pass on that. Let me get something that's actually, not made in Japan. So, and that's the funny thing is that's why Japan and China are buying American farmland because they're worried that their agriculture is messed up from water supplies that are tainted.
That's
And
crazy.
here's the crazy thing. We're talking
Yeah.
about this right now. Nobody's talking about it. No one. You don't see or hear about this on the news. You hear about the budget deficit and we're running up our debts and blah 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 blah. And like everyone's hey, we're trying to make fake meat. I'm thinking to myself, well, can we just talk about the whole fucking 2.5 tons of radiation going into the ocean thing? And when the thing I think about is when great white sharks decide to thumb their nose up on a feeding area, my thinking is they might know something. They might know something. Maybe we should talk to the great white sharks. And when they stop feeding, and that's the other thing too, they're going to areas where they never fed before. They're feeding off the coast of Florida. Like people in Florida are like, holy fuck, we got a great white shark. We've never seen one. This year we saw 15 of them. I'm like, yeah, it's called food supply. Those guys know where to shop.
You know, I realized while I had my family in Florida for 2 weeks during Fukushima, I started doing more research because I was seriously concerned. Because I know in Chernobyl, the incidence of thyroid cancer, which delays, it doesn't come up for 5, 10 years later. And the problem is, see, then they don't attribute the death from the radiation exposure. So all these nuclear plants are basically still getting licensing. And do you know the technology for Fukushima came from the US, GE? It wasn't even Japanese technology.
Well, I'm not really like critical of the technology because it was a unique situation where they got hit by a tsunami, large wave, blah blah blah. But what bothers me, and they've tried to solve that problem. They tried to dump cement on it, and the rods are so hot it made the cement turn into dust. They've tried
Wow.
pouring water on it. They've tried everything. I mean, you're literally talking about rods that are the heat of the sun. So those fuckers aren't going anywhere anytime soon for 50,000 years. So that's not changing anytime soon. And here's the crazy part. They got fencing up by Fukushima where they have boars the size of horses now. Boars, like, pigs, boars. And it's
I
actually,
thought you said horrors. You mean boars.
well, yeah, boars, horses, yeah. But they got boars, like wild boars that are the size of a horse now. And it's changed the entire like biology and also agriculture. And it makes me wonder. I'm thinking to myself, okay, shouldn't anybody like be talking about this? Like, how the fuck are we not talking about this?
Well, first off, uh, at my events, I take iodine and I put it on their wrist, and then I let it dry, and I tell them if the iodine from on your wrist disappears within hours, your body is so thirsty for iodine, it sucks it up and disappears, then you're seriously over 1 billion people in the world are iodine deficient, which is the core to thyroid production. And you then take milligram dose back to my story about Chernobyl. They knew to give 30 to 100 milligrams, not micrograms, of iodine. And it saved a vast majority of the people. And the only survivors of the nuclear bomb that was dropped in Japan, when I guess it was what, Hiroshima, right?
Yeah.
The only survivors, this is a true story, were eating large amounts of seaweed, uh, the miso soup, and one other type product that's indigenous to them. And it was rich in what? Iodine. The first thing you
Shout out
die
to
from,
miso soup. That shit is fucking amazing. I love that shit.
yeah, the first thing you will die from is thyroid cancer. If you have enough milligrams of iodine from something I call rat iodine that I told you I use to prevent cancer, if they do get a cancer, and also breast cancer, if you have high levels of iodine, the mortality rate is infinitely lower than those who are deficient in iodine. So iodine has a massive protective factor. Dr. Eric Braverman, one of the smartest medical doctors I know out of New York, and he's written several books. He's been on Christian radio and so forth. And he and I did an interview, and he said, it's not only iodine, Dr. Nick. You need selenium. You need multiple trace minerals because that's going to be protective for most of the nuclear radioactive particles. See, because the ocean will transmit, and the air is worse because it carries the smaller particles first. The big, heavy particles go to the bottom of the ocean. Who knows what we're doing to the bottom of the ocean, right, Chris? So all these things I've taken into account because my newest book is all about cancer and estrogen toxins, something no one's talking about also. And I talked to Arnold Schwarzenegger's lookalike in one of his movies, and he had man boobs, and he had them because all these bodybuilders inject so much testosterone, the excess synthetic converts into estrogen. So I created a series of estrogen dominant removal products that are our best-selling products in the world. And the point is that these guys are going in for gynecomastia surgery. Did you know if you look up Dwayne Johnson, you know who that is?
The Rock?
Yeah. He had gynecomastia surgery. I can talk about it because it's public knowledge, at least in the internet, and he hasn't denied it. So can you imagine a big muscular guy like the Dwayne Johnson Rock, and he's got big female boobies because he doesn't know how to manage his estrogen? I'm an expert in estrogen management. So I helped the lookalike to Arnold, and it cleared up his man boobs, and it prevented him. He didn't have to have surgery. Is that crazy?
You know, it's kind of weird. When I see Dwayne Johnson now on his like social media posts, and he's working out in the gym. He's got some boobies, like like fat, almost like Dwayne. I'm not being negative. I'm just saying you got a little like little boobie-ish.
He needs my protocol. I could help him. There's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of estrogen dominance.
Well,
And
you're
most
in
doctors,
California, aren't you?
yeah, Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah, just Dwayne, what's up?
Yeah. So, true story. You've heard of Mike Tyson, obviously. His
Yeah,
doctor.
Mike's here in Vegas a lot, and I've gotten a chance to get to know him throughout the years. One of the nicest human beings on the planet.
True. Years ago, he and his doctor called me, and I could hear Mike in the background, his doctor, because all the doctors know me. The general public doesn't, the celebrities don't know me because I'm the coach over the years to the medical doctors and scientists. And so they would use my protocols to help their clients. True story. So Mike said, they're talking to me, he says, well, how do we help him get in shape for this fight? And back then, that was years ago, pre him going vegan. And then he went back to meat recently, which I think is a mistake. But long story short, we saw his performance. You know what happened. But listen, he was using my product, never talked about it, but he was using my product. And then I don't know if my influence about, going more plant-based, but I'm not sure who exactly influenced him, but I do know for a fact that he got in great shape in the years where he went more plant-based. Great shape. He dropped almost 100 pounds, I think it was.
The more I hear you talk about that, and the more I know people that are plant-based, the more I'm telling you, you're spot on because people that are plant-based that I personally know have lived such a healthier life than other people.
I met with Dave Asprey here this last weekend. He was at the conference, and he and I took a picture together with Ron Klatz, the founder, a co-founder with Bob Goldman there. And we get invited to a special celebrity party. And Dave and I agree on many things. And there's certain things we disagree. But it's interesting that for years he would talk about keto and this and that, which is cool. And they'd sell a slab of butter at his booth and whatever. But I looked at his blood and we talked about it, and blood doesn't lie, and I won't go into those details, but he streamed it on his own platform. So, I won't say exactly what we saw, but it's interesting that now he talks about adding 300 grams, I believe it is, of complex carbohydrates into his food. And Paul Saldino, the carnivore code, he was on Thomas DeLore's podcast. Look it up. And he's talking about, after he went to Costa Rica, adding back 300 grams of complex carbohydrates. Do you know Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympiad, always walked around in contest shape? You know one of his secrets?
No.
most of these keto guys say get down to 50 grams of carbohydrates a day, right? But I agree, get rid of the simple carbohydrates. We're not talking complex carbohydrates. And I asked Lee, I said, what does complex carbohydrates do for a bodybuilder? They have what? A protein sparing effect, meaning the more complex carbohydrates you take in, and look around the world, those countries that eat,
Wait a
say,
second, hold on. What's a complex carbohydrate? I know pasta. Is pasta complex?
not necessarily, yes, by definition, but you get from Egypt like whole wheat that has 14 chromosomes, not US bastardized wheat that's been hybrid to be, very fluffy and high in gluten, right? Because the gluten is a little bit of a problem. But a lot of those ancient wheats, you can go
Gluten's
to
a huge
Newport,
problem for a lot of
Newport
people.
Beach, and they import, really good Italian pasta that you can get down there at the beach. But
Yeah, when
point
I
is,
was in Italy, I got to tell you, pasta in Italy is way different than it is out here. Way different.
completely
Yeah, like
much healthier.
it's night and day different. And by the way, pizza's different out there too. Like it's fluffier and less filling. Like you can like yeah, it's totally
I don't
different.
think they use as much cheese there too, right?
They definitely don't use much cheese. And what the cheese that they do use, a lot of it is mozzarella, actual real mozzarella.
Right. And the difference is that this is recently talked by Kelly Means and her brother. I believe it's Callie Means and let's see, the brother. I just released a show, and he was a food lobbyist, for big pharma and also for big food industry. Well,
Shout
she's a
out to Big
surgeon.
Pharma, keep killing people.
Yeah, and what they're saying is they're spraying, and no one's talking about this, literally millions of pounds of pesticides on our crops, and Europe and Asia won't accept our fruits and vegetables, except you mentioned about Japan because they have a worse problem with the radiation. But the truth is that I used to kind of think, oh, how important is this GMO thing and pesticide and herbicide free? Do you know one of the highest rates of Parkinson's disease is near golf courses where they spray it with all these herbicides, Roundup and stuff, and they have a high incidence, a very high incidence of one of the most horrible neurological diseases, Parkinson's and ALS. True story.
It's funny. I'm doing something for the Super Bowl with Parkinson's to raise money and awareness. Brett Favre this year announced that he's suffering from Parkinson's. So I actually know a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. Parkinson's is out of control, and I don't think people understand. Like they got to watch what they put in their body. Like it literally does go down to even seed oils. You got to watch yourself.
Well, Todd Alt, the billionaire, just confidentially, he'd asked me to mentor him, and he was so busy. I ended up helping his daughter, who had a problem with acne and another issue, and we became friends. And again, you keep mentioning the Super Bowl organizer. He was the guy that showed me the money, right? He was the attorney for.
Yeah. He was Cuba Gooding Jr.'s attorney.
Yeah. So I tried to approach Todd at the last event he had me speak at. I was on stage, but we were all both so busy. The point is, I have a protocol that I believe can help
He did that at
Parkinson's.
the Rio, didn't he?
The recent one, the year before, he did it at Airings Hotel, kind of a private hotel down the street.
Ahern's. You mean Ahern's?
Yes,
Yeah, and then yeah, this year he was at the
I
Rio.
spoke at that event.
The Ahern or the Rio?
Ahern.
Yeah, this year he did it at the Rio during F1 week, and I'm not so sure that was good timing on his part.
I know. I chose not to go for the reason you mentioned.
Well, I feel bad for him because F1 makes everything horrible because you can't get around, you can't travel. It's literally the worst idea that Vegas has come up with in a long time. And Vegas has come up with some really bad ideas.
this During that week they did Formula One because Todd Alt, the billionaire, he owns a few Formula One cars, and I got to ride in the back seat with one of the drivers. He took us all of his VIPs, and I'm blown away. I guess you have a roadway out in Vegas, and it is. I've been in fast cars, but this
You're
is
talking
not
about the
even.
you're talking about the roadway up north, the NASCAR track?
Well, when you say up north, it's in Vegas.
Okay, so if it's in Vegas, it's the actual F1 track around the strip. There's
Yeah,
another race car track for NASCAR up north that you can rent cars and actually run the track.
yeah. I think that might have been it, but it wasn't NASCAR. We had a Formula. I don't know if it's Formula One
No,
or
no,
two,
it's a
whatever.
NASCAR track, but you can run any kind of race car you want on there.
Okay,
But
yeah,
the
he
actual track
literally.
is it's a race track. It's a NASCAR racetrack.
Yeah, it was a mind blowing experience. I've never been in a car and known how
I'll be
incredibly
honest with you, those
amazing.
Formula One cars, like if you're, I'm 6'1.5", so like I don't even know how the hell people get in. I tried getting in one that was at the Wynn, and I couldn't even get my elbows in it. I'm like, what's wrong with you people?
By the way, I hear Wynn was mostly plant based himself. Is he still living?
Well, I think he's still living, but he's a very quiet guy these days, and I think he's still living. But I also know that he's very plant-based. Like that's a big thing for him, and he
Yeah,
actually made plant-based a big part of all the restaurants. Like you can get a plant-based menu. Like that was a big deal for him.
it's interesting. Mike Muller, he's a kettlebell champion, and he's in Vegas. And he kind of made fun of me because I had this theory about estrogen dominance and different conversations. And he and I finally had a long conversation. And I started sending him the science about it, doing, you're not going to measure estrogen dominance in the blood. That's why all these bodybuilders and doctors are missing. You've got to pick it up in 24-hour urine test. And it turns out that I was correct, that there's this bad form of estrogen that forms in the presence of a predominantly animal-based product. And Paul Saldino himself, as I mentioned, has recently gone more plant-based, and he's kind of changed his opinion. I don't disagree. I think glandulars are good, in reasonable amounts, but, dominating your whole diet with animal-based. But people say, well, an animal-based diet got rid of all my symptoms and problems. Who's that guy? He's very sharp. He wrote the 12 rules. He's a former alcoholic, or maybe still an alcoholic. He's been on, I think, Joe Rogan's show. I don't know, but Joe tends to have a lot of animal-based guys on his show. I wish he'd have me on, because I'll go head-to-head with any of these guys. I offer a 12-minute workout. TJ Slaughter, who is NFL for the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. He's arguably one of the strongest men I've ever put through the 12-minute workout. I had a lot of elite athletes. The guy from the Washington Redskins when they had a Super Bowl. I challenge guys. Literally, there's a video of me challenging these elite athletes, and here I am, my age, and outlifting them in the gym, and it blows them away how in the world I could do it. And I have all these 7 secrets that I teach in my book. I explain exactly, because I'm an open book. I tell everyone how I do it, how you can become a great Italian lover, or whatever lover you want to be, and get your blood cleaned up. And also, I discovered a solution to acne, believe it or not. And I co-wrote a book with the top board certified
I'm pretty
dermatologist.
sure the solution to acne is not eat McDonald's. Do not eat McDonald's.
Right. Dr. Sonia Batterisi Banicel is a top board certified dermatologist, and she read through my manuscript. She said, I love this. I'll co-write with you. So we went line by line. So she totally is involved with the understanding that certain processed foods, we all know sugar, but oils too, and animal-based. And there's a good example, John McDougall, who passed on this last year, God bless him, but he had an example of twins, and one twin was following your McDonald's typical food eating. The other one was oil-free, sugar-free, plant-based, and they identical twins. And the one developed acne horribly on the processed, animal-based diet, and the other one on the plant-based, oil-free, sugar-free, complete pure skin.
Now, by the way, just to make this one thing clear, just
Yeah.
for the record, McDonald's, you fucking crush it on the Egg McMuffins. Those sausage McMuffins and a side of hash browns, that shit is untouchable. So while the rest of your shit is garbage, I'm not going to rip you for the Egg McMuffins.
I have a problem with the Egg McMuffin, can I tell you?
It's because they squirt butter on it. I'm telling you, I know the secret. It's they squirt.
No, it's
That's
not
why
just that. What is the number one source of cholesterol in the American diet? I know all these people saying, oh, we've just bunked cholesterol theories. That's not true at all. What do you think the number one selling drug the GLP fat loss ones, which are now number one, but they were statin drugs, because everyone has a cholesterol problem. And I did too. I had a stroke when I was 21. Did I tell you that story?
I had a stroke that took my left eye. I had one 8 years ago.
Yeah. So, it didn't take my life, and fortunately I survived it. And basically I started studying with, if you ever heard of Nathan Pritikin, who influenced Michael Greger, who has nutritionfacts.org and 12 full-time researchers. So we're always looking for any chink or mistake or fallacy about what I'm teaching you right now. And we just keep finding more and more research that justifies. You probably saw the documentary Game Changers, right?
With who?
Well, Game Changers was about a bunch of plant-based athletes. One of them purported to be the strongest man in the world at the time. And by the way, I interviewed Thor, the guy that plays the character Thor, at backstage at Arnold Classic. He's an amazing. I have all these great interviews with incredible athletes,
Wait, when
and I
you say
always
the guy that plays Thor, are you talking about what's his name, the actor?
know he's over 440 pounds. Berjarn,
Oh, the really tall, the Norwegian guy.
Iceland. He's huge.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's definitely
I'm
huge.
interviewing him, Chris,
I
and I'm
saw him
like
at the
this with
Super
my
Bowl a couple of years
microphone.
ago. Yeah, no,
I'm
I
like
saw him.
this with my microphone because
Well,
I can't even reach
he's
it.
not only tall, but he's actually big in every aspect of a human body. Like when he shakes your hand, his hand it engulfs your entire hand.
Yeah, that's like Tony Robbins too. Tony's 6'8", and I'm there's pictures with me and him, and I mean he's literally
How
had
tall are you?
giantism, huh?
Well, you know the story about Tony. I used to work with Tony a long time ago, and long time ago when I was in my 20s, and I used to manage crowd control. Well, at the end of the day, I got to tell you something. Tony's a miracle, a modern miracle. He was born with gigantism. You know what that is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Well,
giantism, acromegalia.
yeah. So his heart was this big, but his body was bigger. And he literally used stem cells to deal with that problem. And somehow, some way, he was supposed to die when he was in his 40s, and now he's 58, and he looks great. And
Well, there's a picture of him and me in Hawaii back when he had acromegalia, and you see they had to do constructive surgery because his face, had that long, strange look of giants. And now he looks really sharp. He had the best surgeon around.
I didn't know he had that done, but I know that like to fix his internal organs, they use stem cells. And I'm not kidding you, he's a modern poster boy for stem cell work.
You mentioned red light. I'm sorry to jump around so much. It's called open loops. Tony
Listen,
does it
we're
all the
just
time,
talking.
but huh?
We're just talking, man. It's just a conversation.
Yeah, it keeps subconscious mind open, and they're wondering. I know Dr. Nick said something about there's only one way to know if whether a woman's had an orgasm or not. I never even shared that secret yet. But if they stay tuned, I'll share it if they stay on long enough. You remind me, Chris, to say it. But back to the other loop, when you think about walking on fire, the mind is so powerful. And of course, Tony learned from Richard Bandler, who openly had him on a podcast recently, full disclosure saying, yeah, this is the guy that made me who I am, essentially. And a good example of that, I went to train with Dr. Tad James, Mary Lagon, Richard Bandler. So I tried to and did master all those secrets. It's one of the reasons why I've broken 2 world strength endurance records. Realize at the age of 54, I outlifted the world's strongest men in the world, not in single lift, but in nonstop lifting.
That's impressive.
So imagine taking 50 pounds. Stuart Burrell of the UK had curled nonstop for 1 hour. You know how many curls he did in 1 hour?
120.
550 curls in 1 hour.
God, I was so close.
And in 1 hour, do you know how many I did out at Inspiration Point with cameras filming and 3 judges?
641.
1,038 curls in 1 hour.
That's impressive.
Nonstop.
So you were doing over 20 an hour. Well, no, a little under 20 an hour. About 18 and a half an hour.
No, I did it all within 1 hour. You mean 20 a minute?
Oh, actually, yeah, you were doing about 18 and a half a minute. Yeah, disregard that. Yeah, that's
Can you imagine with 50 pounds? I'm only 5'8" and 169 pounds.
Yeah, no, that's actually super impressive.
I don't have big guns. I have normal sized guns. I even have kind of a short bicep, the way Franco Columbu, where Arnold has that full bicep that goes all the way and it looks really impressive. But I can outlift anyone on any given Sunday. I say anyone. I'll challenge Gary Brecka any day of the week. I took on his personal #1 trainer, his #1 hire, and we went to the gym and did my 12-minute workout like I did with TJ Slaughter. And they both said, it was an amazingly intense workout. Most intense. One guy said the most intense thing he'd ever done in his life.
So you're 69, you're going on 70. What are 3 things that you want to tell people about living a higher quality, healthier life?
Make sure your woman comes first, and you know she's come if you put a little finger just at the tip of her anus without inserting it. That's your thing, whether you do or not. And you'll feel at the time of true orgasm, the anal sphincter will contract very rapidly, uncontrollably, really fast. It doesn't matter how she screams, how the color of her facial, her nipples erect. None of that matters. Only one thing besides EKG and electrodes connected to the vaginal area and the clitoral area will measure the amplitude of orgasm, whether a woman truly had orgasm or not. Did you know that?
Well, I kind of understood the whole anal thing because I know some girls that literally anal sex is how they come, and they were, for whatever reason, that's their go-to.
Okay, again, there's no pleasure nerve endings inside the anus.
Well,
It
I
will
don't
if
know
you,
if it's because of the inside or the outside, but like there's something about that whole outside area of the anus that,
oh, the outside definitely is sensitive.
yeah, and trust me,
Plus, it kind of triggers the use of the Kegel muscles. And the Kegel muscles are the core of the contractions that does stimulate the clitoral area.
and I also know that women, many women, love oral sex being given to them as a way of creating pleasure for themselves. So
Yes.
all the outside, all the things that men look for on the inside of the woman's body and the inside of the vagina or whatever, it literally has very little to do with pleasing a woman as much as it does on the outside.
Yeah, I have a client that he said his wife had never orgasmed in 5 years, and she finally revealed to him that he was a lousy lover. So I gave him a set of books, and he started reading about women writing about how they please other women. Of course, women know, and it was complete game changer because the premise of She Comes First is that intercourse is falsely purported by Freud as the only mature form of sexual engagement. And he would call oral stimulation or clitoral stimulation or G spot as immature sex by his own male nature, because he preferred to have intercourse because guys want to have intercourse.
Well,
But
I
it
think
did,
guys want to have intercourse because it's part of dominance. It's part of it actually feeds the male brain, and that's men sometimes mentally, sexually orgasm, and they feed their brain that they're dominating a female.
yeah, but all of our pleasure nerve endings are the tip of our penis. We have about 8,000 pleasure nerve endings at the end of our penis, but women have a far deeper structure with 15,000 pleasure nerve endings in the structure that I've described.
I'm
So
pretty sure
women have,
that's correct.
what's that?
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're spot on.
Yeah. So the point is, women not only are capable and be insatiable of continuous orgasms. When Masters and Johnson studied how long it would take for a woman to orgasm and how many they could have in a day, after 8 hour period, the woman had come so many times, the laboratory experiment shut down. They said there's no limit. It seems like a woman could keep coming as often as she's stimulated with a little rest period. Men are limited to about 1 to 2, maybe 3 in their younger years. But I set up protocols that allow men, if they want to last longer, to come more often and to improve
Well,
their.
what about the theory about if you're having sex and right when you're coming, you literally squeeze that area right between your sack and your ass, where you literally injaculate instead of ejaculate. There was a theory where that actually allowed you to save that semen and actually recycle it.
Yeah, the
I'm sure that
perineum.
that's true.
I know John Gray has a belief about that. I interviewed him. We talked about it. He tells me that, it's normal for a 70-year-old to make love once a month. I think you're just friends when you make love once a month. I think a 69 going on 70 should be able to make love 4 times minimum. And studies show if you ejaculate at least 3 times a week at any age, that you're going to have a much lower incidence of prostate cancer and prostate enlargement.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that too. So That I'm sure of. Okay, so that's one thing. What are two other things you want to tell people about living
Sleep.
a higher quality life?
Sleep is huge. And if you're brave enough, substitute in coffee. There's a metabolite that's safer, paradoxethane, which it's a metabolite of like green tea and things like that. But even that's too strong for me. Some people don't metabolize caffeine. I know all the people out there addicted to coffee are like they're getting really pissed off right now. But the truth is, when you have as much energy as I do, and when I teach you methyl donors, certain things that Gary Brecka does say correctly, these methyl donors, phosphatidylserine, MSM, TMG, DMG, there are CH3 molecules. They break down. It allows your body to undergo a billion with the B chemical reactions per second. So when you get into really elegant levels of energy in mitochondria, and I use a CVAC, which is cyclic variations and adaptive conditioning, is 10 times more powerful than hyperbaric oxygen. And so I do about 2 20-minute sessions. If I'm really exhausted, I do 3 sessions. And I feel like even after I broke a world record, which not only did I break the world record for curls, I broke the world record for curl and press, which is a nonstop lifting for an hour. And I lifted 50,560 pounds in 1 hour, 2,000 lifts continuous with dumbbells. No human's ever done that.
That's impressive.
And what I did was the principles I'm now telling you, and the rest of the stories in my book, StopAgingNowBook.com. You can find it on Amazon. But the point is that I mentioned sleep. And people think as you get older, you don't need as much sleep. That's not true. You still need 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. But if you're on a plant-based, more raw food, you'll notice you'll be refreshed after about 6 and may not need 8. Also, your window of eating and fasting should be 12 hours. Walter Longo from USC, the world expert on fasting, says after 8 o'clock at night, you stop eating and then you eat again at 8 o'clock in the morning. All these people are narrowing the window of fasting to 4 hours, which is only because they eat so much animal product, their body can't clear all these heavy animal products. And keep in mind, chicken, fish, and turkey has as much cholesterol as red meat. Did you just hear what I said?
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually true.
I'll bet you
from
50
everything I've
cents right
read, I don't
now.
know if
If
that's
you
true.
look up tuna packed in water, the same 3 ounces of tuna packed in water has 75 milligrams of cholesterol, and 3 ounces of beef has only 60 milligrams.
Okay, I got to do that research myself, but from everything I've read and learned, seafood and meat are significantly different when it comes to cholesterol.
Completely wrong.
Okay.
And Stanford proved a study that having high HDL levels is not protective once the LDL bad cholesterol gets above 95. And it turns out berberine, according to Jonathan Wright, and I use a product called Lipoburn, selectively lowers LDL cholesterol and assists HDL to be a little bit higher along with exercise. And then it also selectively lowers triglycerides. Triglycerides, I do testing, not just fasting, but after eating, because that tells you far more. So that's the next point. Understand your diet, understand whole foods, use complex carbohydrates as a protein sparing effect, the way Lee Haney takes in 500 grams of sweet potatoes and vegetables. I just met with him recently at the Mr. Olympiad, just what was it, a few weeks ago, a month ago or whatever.
October.
And yeah, and I took pictures of him. Lee and I've interviewed him on more than one occasion. He's one of the smartest bodybuilders there is. And you know, contest shape. You know how guys have to cycle and they go on a high-fat animal protein diet, Phil Heath and all these guys. Then they got to par down and starve themselves to make weight, right? Or to look good on stage, or they use diuretics, which is dangerous. Don't use diuretics.
That's actually no bueno.
Over what, 50 bodybuilders died over the last year or so using mega dosages of chemicals and not just the steroid abuse of synthetic, but the diet. They're dying from the diet. Take an 800-pound gorilla. Do you think it eats much meat? Hardly ever. You know, the longest lived people in the world eat sweet potatoes, purple sweet potatoes from Okinawa, right? You've heard that.
Didn't hear it. No, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, they eat a lot of oranges and purple sweet potatoes. Now they've been eating a lot more pork and they're having poor health and things are changing. But, you look around the world, you get clues, but now modern civilization is stretched everywhere and polluted the whole world with American ideals about the big food industry. We have more lobbyists, according to Mr. Means, the lobbyist, and he's coming out telling the truth about it. And because we sponsor it, meat would be so expensive that people would hardly eat it. But because we, the taxpayers, sponsor it, we increase the level of strokes, heart attacks, diabetes, cancer. And whether you believe it or not, my newest book coming out, I haven't come up with the title yet. Right now, it's subtitled Cancer, Acne, Estrogen Toxins, Balance Your Hormones. That's the subtitle right now. But long story short, I'm going to come out without an Audible book, by the way. I'm committed to having it out for January of 2025. So my goal, the next step is detoxify. Use far infrared spa, use exercise to detoxify, a lot of fiber. You need at least 100 grams of fiber a day. Primitive relatives ate 100 to 120 grams. There's an example of Michael Greger. He called them the super poopers. He gave women 100 grams of fiber a day. They had to eat all the fiber. They measured it exactly. And the average woman had 4 bowel movements a day. They were at risk for breast cancer. And within 30 days, the average woman, they're risk lowering prolactin and harmful hormones that are
Hey, by
known
the
to
way,
cause breast cancer.
I don't know what it is, but I take turmeric every day. And ever since I've been doing turmeric, my bowel movements have been amazing. I don't know if that
Turmeric,
there's some sort of
Turmeric's
connection.
amazing. It's an amazing spice. It's very good for you. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. I like as a selective antioxidant is molecular hydrogen. My buddy Alex has created it. We use a product called Rejuvenation, and he puts a lot of the fighters on it. He's got some fighters coming out at the Dome coming up in LA, and he's getting me some tickets. My son loves MMA and fighting. I've been taking my
When you
son
say the
back in the day.
dome, what dome?
LA, the Dome, sponsored by I don't know, what is that big company? Microsoft,
Crypto.com?
huh?
Are you talking about the dome? Are you talking about the new Clippers stadium? The,
Yes.
okay, cool. Is it Intuit Dome?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the build out that they did for that, unbelievable. They crushed it.
Yeah, spot on. So the point is that my son and I on January 18th, the same day that in the morning I'm doing Forever Young event in Costa Mesa, and you're all invited. It's essentially it's a free event online, but when you come, we serve you full course foods. We show you the 12-minute workout, which I'm going to get to in a moment. We show you everything that you need to know in that essential 3-hour course. Then I'm taking off with my son to the Dome and see the fights with Alex and have a good time. Life's about life. I have children. I have 5 children, 4 grandchildren, and I do everything I can to be with my children. I put in good 12-hour days like Alex Hermosi does, but at the end of 8 o'clock at night, I usually cut out and hang out with friends and family and take life the way it should be. I love life.
Alex lives out here in Vegas, and
Yeah, he
while he's
does.
successful, and I recognize his success. I think the message he preaches about not living his life, that's a sad thing. And I think he really like tells people, listen, work 7 days a week, don't enjoy your life, don't make kids, blah blah blah. And I think he's missing out on living life. Life is to be lived.
Well, look at Elon Musk. He has children. He's what, one of the most successful billionaires in history. And look, he loves his kids. I don't think he's married now. Isn't he single? I don't know what Musk's situation is. But the
Yeah, he's
point
definitely
is,
not married.
yeah, the point is, listen, there's examples of billionaires that have children and billionaires that don't. I don't think children's the factor. You just need to integrate and teach your children to grow up, learn to appreciate entrepreneurship while still having a life. I would not sacrifice my health or my emotional well-being to work an extra 4 hours and bite into my sleep. That's why I said you need your sleep. And if you're needing to finish a project, get to bed early, which is what I did when I was training to break the world record. I get to bed at 8 o'clock at night, wake up at 12 midnight, go to the beach and lift dumbbells nonstop for an hour, my sport. And then I'd go back to sleep for another 4 hours and wake up for a long day. You know what I mean? So, and I pack my food. That's the other thing. I do food prep every day. I prepare in crock pots, air fryers, and different things. And I bring all these whole fresh fruits and vegetables. I eat like a gorilla. I eat large pounds and pounds of raw fresh fruits and vegetables, beans and peas. And I don't have to consume animal product ever If I do, it's not because I'm an ethical vegan. God bless those who are. I eat it occasionally. I'm at a buffet. I eat a little scallops. I don't need the protein. It's just there. You follow?
Yeah, it's taste. It's variety.
Right. And you get a good source of B12 from where? A vagina.
You know what? I was going to say that. Not even close. I didn't have an idea where it came from. I can't.
Oh,
You can get it from a jar. B complex B12.
right. So we have a product called Absorb B Complex, and I make sure it's got all the methylated B vitamins and all the good stuff. It's really important to understand that. And I know because I look at thousands of people's blood under a microscope, and one of the serious things I see is ovalocytes, which are oval-shaped cells, or microcytes, very small cells, which is iron deficiency or B12 folic acid. And I help doctors to identify, to help clients. And I even I certify people who are not doctors. I mean, they're just fascinated and they want to look through a microscope and test their buddies and friends and themselves. This guy, Brian Johnson, he's got a lot of good ideas, but his idea of this narrow window of eating and Mediterranean diet, he's off. And he's off for a lot of other reasons, but he's right about sleep. He said you get a lot of erections when you get a quality sleep.
Yeah, he's all about the erections while he's sleeping, which is an interesting conversation point. But that guy takes a shit ton of fucking vitamins.
Jack LaLanne once said, I was friends with Bob Delmatique and took a picture with Jack LaLanne. So I know quite a bit about Jack's life. I mean, he lived to 95, 96, fit up to the last day he passed away, pneumonia. He had a low cortisol level. I have beliefs about his adrenal support that was needed. He drank a little alcohol and stuff. And I think that's hard on the body. But let's just say that Jack represents an incredible guy. And he said he took one supplement for every year he was old. And so he was taking like 85 supplements. But the truth is, I looked at it and I say, give me a supplement that has about 10 or 15 ingredients and put it in one supplement. So you're taking I take maybe 12 different supplements a day. I take them all in the morning and then maybe sometimes at night. And then I'll use my peptides judiciously based on what you need for erection, for quality sleep, for muscle building. And I've got a whole thing. So that herbs, hormone balance, peptides, stem cells. I'm one of the leading experts. I wrote a book for doctors years ago on stem cell for healing. And I had some miracles. I actually injured my leg so badly I couldn't walk for 6 months. And I was taking people over to get stem cell injection. We don't have to go out of country anymore. We can do it right here in
Actually,
San
I
Clemente.
don't know if that's true because the stem cells that they give you in America are not really the right stem cells that you need. They're using fruits for stem cells. I'm not so sure that the stem cell.
Wait. I beg to differ. I know the exact source, the best source that was treating cerebral palsy kids, which was our first research. California had $4 billion budget, and they never even tested one human or helped one human. They did it all on animals. We have done over 7,000 clients with no adverse effects using cord blood stem cells, but we have to call about rejuvenation and take each patient individually. So we can't openly advertise it. This is not an advertisement for it, but I'm saying each patient has to be evaluated. You don't have to go to Panama. Panama, the guy Reardon lost his contract. He doesn't get the quality. So people are still paying $25,000 international travel and they're wrong.
out of Mexico does really good work too. I literally know people that have gone to see those guys.
Who?
CPI Institute. They work with all the UFC fighters. They're literally
put it this way.
Mexico.
Put it this way. I go to Mexico. I know which clinics are doing quality work. I've had stem cells done in Mexico. I've had stem cells done in Malaysia. I've had stem cells done at various places around the world. And I know what not to do. Biological material you have to be very careful of because even though it's from your own body, be very careful. Dr. Tom Loeb's probably the expert in this area. I wouldn't use him from anyone else. There's only 2 sources that I know are safe. And no one does what's called FDA approved. They only come up when there's an adverse effect where someone injected some bad stem cells in the eye and the lady went blind in both eyes. Instead of injecting just one eye, they did both and she went completely blind. Stupid stuff's gone on. So you really need to go an expert like ourselves, and we guide you through our team of doctors. We know exactly who's the best providers. We're also the #1 provider for UFC fighters in peptides.
Human stem cell work in America?
Say again?
Has the FDA approved human stem cell work in America? Because the only reason people left America for stem cell work was because they wouldn't allow it to happen.
I happen to work with a team of doctors and physicians and attorneys, and waivers are signed, no claims are made. Each patient is treated individually. You don't just, like a cattle call, inject everyone with stem cells. Some people are not candidates.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And by the
so
way,
a doc,
some people
huh?
need different types of stem cells. There's a whole different, like, it's personal medication.
Let me just say, I work with a team of the world experts on stem. You got to remember, if I'm going to break the world record for healthy aging and still be able to make love at 100 and some years of age, I have to be doing certain things that no human before us, even Brian Johnson, has ever thought of. Now, I did TPE, therapeutic plasma exchange. Brian has done that. And you exchange through a machine. It goes through this big machine. It takes all of your albumin, 97% of my toxins were removed with one session. And then it comes back in another machine with albumin. And then your body repopulates the plasma, and then the red cells and white cells, the healthy ones, are reinfused back. And it was the most purifying experience I've ever had. And when I did my blood analysis for oxidative stress, I've never seen my blood look so perfect. I had
Wow.
a
That's
very
actually
wealthy.
one of the things I've actually been very curious about.
We
And
we
I've
do it down
seen,
in La Jolla, California. We do it in Chicago.
do you do it in Vegas or no?
I'll check with our providers. I'm pretty sure.
How long of a process is that? That's got to be hours long.
Yeah, I mean, there's a video of me doing it. It took, I'm going to say, about 3 hours.
Yeah, I figured that. Like, it's because you got to literally let your body naturally let all that flow out and then flow back in.
Yeah, you can see through the tubes the actual blood separated by white cells, red cells, and plasma. It's just freaking space age stuff.
Yeah, that stuff. I actually think very that's a very good way to stay healthy and actually improve your health. That stuff is really right there.
Yeah, one of my doctor friends, Dr. Paul Savage, he's a big fan of it. He's out of Chicago. He
Oh,
probably does
you
it the
gotta
most.
love that name, Paul Savage. Hi, my name is Dr. Savage. What?
He's probably one of my favorite doctors, and basically he's a big fan of TPE, therapeutic plasma exchange, and Dr. Phil Milgram. I have a whole host of great doctors I work with, but let me just say that Paul Savage once said that I saved his life because he came to my immersion program that I told you about. Instead of just the 1 day thing, he stayed with me for about, I think it was 12 days plus or minus. And he embossed so many of the things I taught that to this day, like I said, he just, if you ask him about me, he'll tell you. I'm not making this stuff up. You know, I couldn't make it up even if you paid me. It's like, it's what it is. People get results when they do real therapies that work. And to that point about radiation, Dr. Harvey Kaplan came to our immersion program, lived with us. He's out of Chicago for about 3 months. And the point is, he's one of the world experts with radiation containment. Do you know he's figured out a way? He sent the documents to Elon Musk, and I don't think he knows Musk, so he's hoping someone will get to Trump or Musk or someone. And they figure out a way to emboss, encase, and detoxify the nuclear radiation out of these planets, out of these plants. Now, whether it'll work or not, he needs a budget. He's got a prototype he's trying to make. I'm not promoting it or
Are you talking about
endorsing it.
plants like nuclear plants? Like plants?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm saying he can encase these things with. He described it. It's not for me to describe. He's been on my talk shows, but he's quite an interesting character. But unfortunately, a police officer once banged his head in, and I don't know if they were after him because of his research on, you know, kind of his position about radioactive plants and, you know, how they need to be done properly and not just foolishly just to make the money. So there's a lot of things going on in life, right? It's money driven. We got to be careful. Money's great. I'm a capitalist. I'm born and raised in the United
there's a
States.
reason why they
California.
haven't found a cure for cancer. I'm just saying.
I just was in a private conversation with the guy that runs one of the biggest organizations, and he said they converted from natural methods because it was so much more profitable to do chemo and radiation.
Yep. Listen,
So
Nick, we've got to do another call, and we've got to
really,
yeah, we've got to, because like we've just scratched the surface on
yes,
so
sir.
many different subject matters. But here's the thing. I don't want to do it via Zoom. So I need you to fly down to New Orleans so we can chop it up down there during Super Bowl week at one of three events that I'm hosting a live
Yes, sir.
podcast at. And if you can get down to New Orleans for Super Bowl week, you'll probably network with some of the best people on the planet when it comes to professional sports. And instead of just doing a podcast, I want you to come down there and do blood tests because I'm pretty sure you haven't done it yet. And I'm pretty sure nobody else has done it yet.
I did at Todd Olt's event in Las Vegas, but I mean, I met and sat at a table with Lee. Is it Strasberg? Say his name
Close
again.
enough, Steinberg.
Steinberg. But we didn't. We had a little conversation,
Shout
and
out to Lee
also
Strasberg, whoever you are.
yeah, and also Todd. Todd has a belief that they can invent a medication. I truly believe, having helped Alzheimer's patients and MS patients, and I have some protocols that would be a subject of a whole show. It will blow you away. I work with some of the top brain treatment.
I'm gonna get you and Nick Lowry and I, who's working with the Alzheimer's Foundation. Nick's the all-time leading scorer in the NFL, and we're gonna do a
Yeah,
talk with all three of us. And I guarantee you, you'll enlighten him, and then at the same time, I think you'll love some of the stuff he's doing with Alzheimer's.
you think he'll hear me through?
I'll staple his hands to the chair. We'll make sure we stick around for an hour.
What position was Nick Lowry? Wasn't he a kicker?
Kicker, yeah, Kansas City Chiefs, New York Jets.
Yeah, I got his autograph. I met him briefly at some convention.
Yeah, he played for 18 years. Great human being. His post career is even better because he's doing stuff to feed the homeless, but he's also helping people, helping the Alzheimer's Foundation get their word out. And I think that's an admirable way of using his platform.
Well, there's a guy named Vince. Forgive me his last name, but he was a kicker for the Vince Abbott for the San Diego Chargers. He was on my show, and I have texted a remote, and I kicked myself because I didn't know by myself which button to push, and we didn't hit record. So we see the video, but we don't hear the sound.
When you did a show with him?
Yeah, with Vince Abbott.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was a great show.
Trust me,
I've heard podcasts
I did a
have
1 hour
two
show one
backups,
time,
right?
and I forgot to hit record, and I thought to myself, yeah, that was a big pile of stupid.
Ben Greenfield, he's been on my show, I've been on his, and he says you should always have a backup. So I usually keep a backup Zoom recorder besides my main microphone because I never know if someone's going to forget to hit the record, including myself. You know, you get in the heat of the battle and you're doing things, you're talking, and next thing you know, an hour later, you go, oh, I didn't even hit record.
So can I get you down at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, February 6th, 7th, and 8th? Just say yes. Don't even worry about it. Don't even look at your calendar. Just say yes. You've never been to the Super Bowl. You've never literally done any of these things. You got it.
Well, I've been to the Super Bowl, the Rams, and I went in my Harley Davidson, and it was cool because it's the only Super Bowl I've been to.
But were you there for Super Bowl week? Did you get a chance to talk on press row?
No, you could get me on press row.
Yeah, we're literally going to have a row of podcasts. There's probably 300 podcasts set up there.
I'm in.
There, see, easy, right?
Yeah.
How hard was that?
Easy.
Like, took you literally less than a second. You're like, fuck, that's an easy one.
One of my favorite meetings took place in New Orleans, and it was, to your point, a big network marketing company. And I met a very special woman who I talked to a few weeks ago, and she helped me write one of, I think, my favorite book I've ever written. It's currently, it's probably, you can find used copies. I don't have a copy down here online, but if you look up Grow Young and Slim by Nick Delgado and Shauna Kendall, she is an amazing lady who had such a huge, I don't understand business much, and she understood business so well, and the internet. We had at the time one of the highest rated internet sites. I didn't know how big it was, is right when the internet was coming out. And she had these team of programmers, and they built my site, growyoungandslim.com. And then years later, some upset web guy tore it down. And I still to this day, we were like one of the highest rated. And she actually had the idea, let's publish the whole book online. And some people say, oh, you're giving away too much information. But that's what the internet was searching for. And now we know we were doing the right thing. And since then, it was a big mistake. But my favorite channel is YouTube. I love YouTube. If I can mention youtube.com/Delgado video. And when people subscribe and comment, I actually read the chats and reply.
Well, I got news for you. You're going to see this all over YouTube in about 2 hours.
Our show?
Yeah, I chop it up fairly quickly. I got a team that's amazing.
You're amazing. This has been a pleasure. I look forward to the show. I'll see you at the Super Bowl, but be ready to shake up some minds and some heavy duty guys, because I have some beliefs and thoughts that I believe can transform all of medical and healthcare. And it's been my 46-year commitment to help train doctors and now the rest of the world, because it's really the public that's going to ask the doctors, and then the doctors will finally want to learn from me.
Well, he's Nick Delgado. He's a world-class author. He is a kick-ass conversation for 2 hours, and he is teaching people how to live better, longer, happier lives.
I'm all about love, longevity, quality of life. Get in shape, people. This is your year. Every Wednesday, I do a show on YouTube, but check out Chris. He'll probably have my links in there. It's all good.
Awesome. Peace out, Nick.
Thank you.
Hey,